So here it is, Friday night. I'm in 770 with a throng of people that are waiting for the Rebbe to come down. The path goes this way, and I'm on one of the sides. I was on the left side. So the Rebbe comes through there and he's saying, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. And then he gets to me, he says, Good Shabbos. He looks at the shoes and goes, huh? And then he catches himself. He goes, oh, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. He goes on. He goes, what? So I got the Rebbe's attention with a pair of shoes.
Welcome to Homesick for Lubavitch, a podcast where we explore Lubavitch identity in the year 2025. My name is Bosi Lgani, and I will be your host. Let's begin. Alrighty, I am here in Boynton Beach with Mr. David Shabat. I'd like to spend a moment on the backstory of how we even met each other. Of course, the Homesick for Lubavitch podcast has been up on the internet for about a year and a half now. And, some of the listeners, I know who they are, and some of them I don't. Many of them, most of them I don't. And one of them is a fellow living in Eretz Yisrael named Daniel. And Daniel is not a card-carrying Lubavitcher, right? I don't think he considers himself at all a Lubavitcher, but for whatever reason, he was curious enough to listen to the podcast, and he reached out to me and told me that, you should have my grandfather on. And he starts telling me the story of his grandfather, Mr. Shabat, David, that fascinated me, which was a story of a young boy who spent close to a decade, right? More than a decade in 770.
Not in 770, but Bedford and Dean,
well,
and then
close enough to 770 in Crown Heights, let's say, in the Lubavitch of the Lubavitch, those early years of the late 50s and early 60s, and went on after that to live his life in various places. Never fully, I shouldn't put it that way, but look, meeting you or seeing you wouldn't assume necessarily.
There would be no clue that I went to Lubavitch.
Yeah, but have a very positive and close connection. And so when he told me that story, I was like, okay, I gotta hear more about it. I just need to figure out a way to get to Florida. So here we are, and thank you very much for making the time and agreeing to come on, and thank you, Daniel, for the shidduch. I'm just here basically to hear your story and to listen. So let's just start from the beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you were born? What was the world around you like at that time?
So I was born in Washington, D.C., probably one of the only from people who are ever going to meet that was born in D.C.
Right.
Now there's a lot out there, but they're born in the suburbs, not in D.C. itself.
Right.
And
what brought your parents to D.C.?
Business. My grandfather was there, and my mother was there, and so that's where they lived in the Bronx, New York, originally. When they moved from Russia to Israel, where my Aunt Rena was born, and then they moved to the Bronx, where my mother was born, and then they moved to D.C. for whatever reason. My grandfather decided that he needed to go there to make money, right. And then of course that's where we were born, and etc. And not religious at all. I couldn't tell you what a yarmulke was. I couldn't tell you what gefilte fish was. That's how far away we were from. And
so no Yom Kippur, no.
What's Yom Kippur? Okay, that's essentially what it was. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay.
So, but my point is, even at home, there was no Judaism.
Not at all. I don't think because of my grandfather that we brought pork in, but there was cheeses and meats and all that other stuff was part of our life at the time.
So no pork was the line.
I don't think. I wouldn't know because
you were a little
but
kid.
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think it was.
So you knew you were Jewish. That much you knew.
At some point, yes, when I got a little bit older, because then my mother sent me to a conservative after school Talmud Torah type situation.
I see.
Okay, and there is repercussions from that till today. I remember sitting on the front porch with my mother and she said she is now pregnant with the fourth child. Okay? And she says, I got a great girl's name, but I have no idea about a boy's name. I can't come up with a boy's name. It's nothing that I like. I said, Mom, in school, in Cheder or whatever, I didn't call it Cheder, but, it was, we're learning about Daniel and the lion's den. She says, Daniel, I like that. And now my brother Daniel has been with us for, over 50 years, So, and he still doesn't believe that I gave him his name, but it's all right.
How about that?
No, good. So that was the closest that I got to anything. And then at one point, the Mullen brothers from Eretz Yisrael, Briskers, moved to D.C. to open a Brisker yeshiva and to expand Brisk in the D.C. area because there was very little on the Orthodox side in D.C. at all, okay? And it was an opportunity that they saw. Okay, so they heard that we were having trouble because my father was gone. And so they came and they started helping out financially with food and different things and helping and whatever. And one day these shluchim came. Shluchim started much earlier than everybody thinks. And we're talking 56, 57. They were already going out as a regular routine. So who knows when they actually started going out as shlichus.
You're talking about the pairs of like Bafrim, right?
Yeah.
America shluchim, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they came and they offered to put me up in yeshiva in the dorm. No cost for anything.
1 second, you were looking to go to yeshiva?
No. I needed something to do. We needed. My mother couldn't afford to pay for all the kids. She couldn't afford it.
I see.
So if I was away in yeshiva 10, 11 months out of the year, that's one financial situation she didn't have to worry about. So it's less money for food, less whatever.
Right. And you were 10 years old at the time,
10 years old. That's correct.
Huh.
So, I was going, I don't know, going away, and I don't know what that would mean, And then they said, plus there's 3 weeks of Camp Gan Yisrael that you would go to before you went to yeshiva. I said, Mom, camp, let's go. Let's do it. So the camp is what got me to go, take me over the hump as a kid.
Right.
But then I went there and I dormed there for sure. Not Bedford and Dean, and then Rabbi Jacobson was looking to open a yeshiva for college kids that had no background. But he didn't want them to have to sit down with beard and everything. He wanted them to feel comfortable. So he's looking for Bachrim that were from and could learn to be their guides, so to speak, with learning and with life, so to speak, as far as a from Jew is concerned.
But 1 second, so he came when you were already in Bedford and Dean.
Yes.
But so you come to Bedford and Dean as a 10-year-old?
As a 10-year-old.
How many other 10-year-olds were there in Bedford and Dean?
Not in the dorm? Oh, they had school from kindergarten all the way through high school.
So you came to the Chabad Elementary School in Bedford and Dean.
That's correct.
As a boy.
As a boy and the dorm.
How many boys were there as 10-year-olds in the dorm?
Not many.
Not many.
Not many. There were a couple. Like Michael Kierman, who lives here also now, and I just ran into him like 6 months ago. He was in the dorm too, but that was later. That wasn't when I was 10. That was more like when I was after bar mitzvah.
So you come as a 10-year-old. You come from Washington, D.C. The only Judaism that you know about is that you don't eat pork, possibly.
Possibly. I don't even know about it because I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
That's even not even certain. Certainly wasn't like a hardcore thing. And you get plopped down first into camp. How was camp like?
Camp was great. They had color war. They had color war. Okay, and the team that I was on for color war got killed. We didn't get many points at all or whatever, except for one baseball team. The baseball team that I played on, I had a 2-run homer and won the game. So that's the only points we got out of baseball was for that one game.
So was camp then in Ellenville or Swan Lake? Do you remember? Swan Lake.
Yeah, for sure.
Who was the head counselor? Do you remember?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember.
57, you said.
57, yeah.
So that's one of the first years there.
I don't know if it was first year or not, but
I think this year they're celebrating. I think they're celebrating 70 this year.
70 years. Wow.
So you were there the second, third year. One of the within the first 5 years for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How about that?
So I'm an alter chassid, I guess you can call me.
Yeah, that's
Hey,
Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought, you know?
So you come to camp, but the camp was a little bit more a mix of Americana, right? There wasn't
Yes,
it wasn't only Hasidic. There weren't that many Hasidic
there
boys.
weren't that many Hasidic boys because they wanted to get the non-Hasidic boys into the camp and to taste and to get a taste.
I also don't think there were many Hasidic boys in America at the time.
Probably not. I mean, I don't know that because I was just a kid. I wasn't even paying attention to stuff like that.
Right.
But no, you're right. There weren't a lot of guys. I mean, there were a couple of older guys with beards and whatnot.
Right.
But I don't remember. There was no one to be friends with at my age at the camp, except like people like me.
Other American kids who had made their way to the camp.
Yeah.
Were you there the summer that the Rebbe came to camp?
No.
Do you remember? You're not there that summer.
I know he wasn't there when I was there, so that
so you only went one summer.
It could have been the first or second. They had 3 sessions. So
I think. Oh, okay. You're saying a different part of the summer.
I was in the 3rd session, so I don't know when he came. If he came that year, whether it was
I see
that session there. But wow, it was an experience, you know. And I was a hero because I had a 2-run homer and won the game. You know, you know.
That'll do it.
So after camp, I went to yeshiva and went into the dorm, and felt strange.
It felt strange.
Yeah. And the thing is, this is really cool. Okay, I didn't know but all I remember seeing is chassidim with payas. So I said, you know, I better grow payas if I'm going to go to Lubavitch.
You're talking about Lubavitch payas or the Satmar payas?
I'm talking about
the curly ones.
Yeah. So I got it, and then I get there, no one's got them on. I said, holy moly.
Wrong payas.
It took me, I think, a week, and finally they got taken off.
Wrong payas.
Yeah.
So did you dress the part? Were you expected to dress the part while you were there?
I dress like I dress now. Didn't change one bit.
Right, but you're 10 years old. Are you you're putting on tzitzis?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, tzitzis.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you don't have to worry about if you're going to keep your beard or not. There is no beard at 10 years old.
Beard. No, there's no beard.
But like in terms of, you know, yarmulke, tzitzis, like you're expected to wear.
That's what it was.
To wear that.
And from when we became religious, I wore my yarmulke every day before I went to yeshiva, whatever it was. I was always wearing. My brother did the same thing, and I remember I was coming home from elementary school.
In Bedford Dean?
No, elementary school in D.C.
Before Bedford Dean?
Yeah. Fairgrove Junior High School. And the teachers loved me because I knew all the answers. I listened, I studied, and I didn't know everybody else in class. They were there, but they didn't study.
You're talking about the Talmud Torah or just regular?
I'm talking about regular public school.
Okay.
And so after a while, they got annoyed with it.
Who got annoyed?
The kids,
Sure.
Yeah. So here I'm walking home now. It's a 8 block walk from my school to my house. And there's about 30 of these kids following me and getting closer and closer and getting a little more threatening and threatening. So finally what I did was I ran across the street, ran up on someone's porch, and started banging on the door. There's 30 kids, 30 black kids from school following me home. They're going to kill me. Help, call the police, call the police, call the police. I did this loud, okay? Thank God I did it loud. There was nobody home. But I turned around, and they were all gone. They all scattered. They didn't know that there was nobody home.
Right.
They just were afraid to come, and they all scattered. And that was the last incident that I ever had with them. But it was, it's... In those days, they really didn't have a good feel for a Jew, what a Jew was. At least in D.C., because there weren't that many living in D.C. They all lived in the suburbs, so
right.
they didn't encounter any.
And then you end up in Brooklyn, where it's only, I mean, not the whole Brooklyn, but in the school, it's full of Jewish kids.
It was all Jewish kids. Not all from kids, but all Jewish kids.
Not all from.
Not all from, because a lot of kids from the area, they wanted to have their kids, and the Lubavitch said, okay, you don't have to pay a whole lot of money for it. You can come in.
So do you remember who, the teachers were, the principal was?
The principal was Rabbi Tenenbaum.
Rabbi Tenenbaum.
And Rabbi Schrager was the vice principal.
Rabbi Schrager was his name?
Schrager, you know Rabbi Schrager?
I never
heard of Rabbi Schrager?
No, was he
you ever hear of the Maccabees?
Yehuda Maccabee?
No. There was a point in time where there was a lot of hatred from the regular community and they were taking out on the Jewish kids from the school and whatnot
In Crown Heights.
in Crown Heights. So, and it was not just that they're doing; they were killing people. They were. I mean, this was heavy duty stuff. So Rabbi Shraga founded the Maccabees. He actually had a rifle or something in the trunk of his car, and they went out protecting everybody against these. And after a while, it stopped, obviously. But I still remember.
Who's this Rabbi Shraga guy? He was a Chabad guy? It doesn't sound like
No,
it.
he wasn't. He wasn't. He was the guy that took care of the dorm.
Right.
He slept in the building and he got paid.
He was
didn't
single?
teach. He was single. He was single, and he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy, but
So he's like a dorm counselor, caretaker?
No, it was a caretaker more than that. He made sure that they were in bed and that kind of
So
stuff.
describe him to me. What did he look like? He had a beard?
He had a beard,
He had a beard.
reddish beard. He was, maybe 5'4", 5'5", something like that.
He was a survivor? Like, what was his
No,
deal?
he came from Brazil. He came from
From Brazil?
From Brazil. He was Brazilian.
Huh.
And he wound up over here. Somebody recruited him in Brazil, and he came here, and this is the job he got.
Right.
But he was a hard guy to be around because he was very demanding and no nonsense.
So he was like the guy who you had to answer to as a dorm?
No. In the dorm,
Right.
In the dorm situation. So
Right.
you had to be in bed on time. You had to get up. So he would wake you up and make sure you went to bed at night. And
So like a kind of dorm counselor almost.
yeah,
father.
I don't ever looked at it that way because
Right.
he didn't counsel anything. He just you get in bed and you get out and that's it.
Dorm counselor without the without the cookies. Okay.
Yeah. So, but he did a lot in the community. I mean, and so he was a tough guy.
And the principal you said was Rabbi Tenenbaum?
Rabbi Tannenbaum.
And he was a Chabad guy?
He was a Chabad guy.
Describe him to me, or at least
I
your
don't know, about
impressions.
5'4", reddish beard.
Also red. Everybody's reddish.
What, he had a reddish beard? What can I tell you?
I believe you.
Maybe that's the only color I could recognize at those days. I don't know. No,
Right.
he had a reddish beard, and he was
Older guy, younger guy.
I would say in those days 40 to 50.
And how did he? Was he? He must have come from Russia. I imagine.
I don't know what.
You don't
I have
know.
no.
He spoke
absolute-
English.
He spoke English well.
He spoke English well.
Yes, but I have no idea where he came from.
What did you think of him? Was he a nice guy? Did you respect him?
I lost a lot of respect for him. I remember after my first year there was tough because Yiddish and Hebrew, I had to learn everything at one time because they translated the Gemara
Into Yiddish.
into Yiddish. So I was going bananas
Right.
until I had this incident with the Rebbe. Someone threw something at him when he was facing the blackboard. And the whole class laughed, and I was laughing too. He thought I threw it.
So just to clarify for people listening, not the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
No,
the
this is
Rebbe
my
of the
Rebbe.
class.
This is the teacher.
Right.
So he came over and twisted my arm, and you don't do that from a guy with DC. You don't do that. I just
Who twisted your arm?
the teacher.
He thought it was you.
He thought it was me. So now he's in
So he's
those days corporal punishment was
Right.
So I became a little corporal with him too. He twisted your arm so your head's over here.
Socked him in
I
the face.
gave him a black eye.
Uh-oh.
Next time I found myself in Rabbi Fogelman's class.
All right, Fogelman.
Half a grade down. I got demoted. So what was he doing? He was now doing, they were, I don't know, about 5 months, 4 months behind, 6 months maybe, I don't know, behind where we're learning in Rabbi Bernetzi's class. So now he's reviewing everything that I already learned in Rabbi Bernetzi's class. So I became the star of the class.
Yeah.
And he fell in love with me,
So you like Rabbi Fogelman?
Fogelman was a dynamite guy, and he was...
Which do you remember his first name?
No. That's right. You didn't call him by the first name.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to figure out which Fogelman it is.
He was from I think Massachusetts
So
originally.
okay. His father probably was a rabbi in Massachusetts.
Could be. If there's a Rabbi Fogelman in
Well,
Massachusetts,
he's
but we're
passed-
talking about going back
No,
into
he's
the...
passed away. That Rabbi Fogelman. I can't imagine he was a teacher because I think he already lived in Massachusetts. But makes
No,
sense.
with this, he came from Massachusetts and taught in the yeshiva.
Okay.
And obviously got married and was living in the Crown Heights still for quite a while.
So maybe it was a rabbi. Was he a bit older at the time?
I don't know what bit older was. I mean, I was like
Anyway.
10, 11. I mean,
Anyway, who any Fogelmans listening to this podcast will know who this Fogelman was. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But what was it like? What was it like in terms of the classmates and just the general, I guess, community that you found yourself in?
Most of the kids in school were similar to me. They were kids from the area.
Right.
Instead of going to public school, Lubavitch Chabad or whatever. Lubavitch Chabad was Chochmah Bina Das in those days. It wasn't Chabad at all. I mean, Chabad didn't exist.
Yes.
Okay, so it was Lubavitch. These guys,
Right.
but their interest was to give people a Jewish education. So they were able to get kids, instead of going to public school, they got them to go to the yeshiva. And for the parents, it was good because now the kids were being taken care of till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, so they could work a job and still be home for the kids when they come home. So it was a good thing for them.
This week's episode is brought to you by This World is a Garden, a new film and concert production by Yuvla Media. Based on the Rebbe's first talk, Bosi Lgani, the production tells the story of the Chabad vision lasting over 300 years, to see this world as God sees it, as His garden. Combining beautiful cinematography with a live performance of a string quartet, This World is a Garden is a meditation on hope and holding on to a vision as time passes by. This production is now available to be shown at your Chabad house and community. Share the message and vision of Bosi Lgani with your community in a way you never have before. For more information, please visit thisworldisagarden.com. Right, but okay, so what you're telling me, and it makes sense, is that in school, it didn't feel so much like a culture shock because many of the kids you could have been them,
Right.
they could have been you. But when school is over, and let's say it's Shabbos, right?
At Shabbos, I had a balabas. Flores Hebrew Bookstore. Did you ever hear of that?
You told me about it on the phone.
Okay,
I guess
so my balabas was Yitzchak Flor and his wife Shoshana. Okay, and
what do you mean by balabas? You stayed with them for Shabbos?
for Shabbos, there was nothing at the yeshiva Shabbos. Everybody came to the Rebbe.
I see.
Okay, so it was a 25-minute walk from Bedford and Dean, the high school we dormed, to over there. So that wasn't a thing as an amenable thing to do on Shabbos. They come there, come and have a meal Friday, then go back up, then walk in the morning again, then go back.
Right.
So they made sure everybody had a balabas. That wasn't the dorm, and they got appropriate people for each of the kids. So I got them. And
So you would stay by them or just eat by them?
Slept by them, and ate by them, and it became part of the family.
Wow. And and I'm assuming they were Chabad, because not everyone in Karnitz in those days was Chabad, or Lubavitch.
He wasn't right wing Lubavitch, but he did a lot with Lubavitch because he had the bookstore and they bought a lot of stuff and they had a lot of business through Lubavitch. So it was a comfortable place for him to daven.
So he davened in 770.
He davened in 770, and he became part of the Lubavitch community to whatever extent. And enough so much that they put a Bedford and Dean guy in their house on Shabbos on a regular basis. So he wasn't like he was a guy from one of the other schools there, or other synagogues.
Right.
He was part of the service, and he did a lot of business with him. So he became a good part, and he knew everybody.
Fascinating.
So it was, for me, it was great because they were real people. I mean, she was an Israeli, Shoshana, and he was born in Williamsburg. And I don't know how they hooked up, what they did, and
they had kids.
They had kids, and I was the uncle to all these kids.
I
was there for 7 years or something like that.
You were older than their kids.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, they're at least 10, 12 years older than the oldest.
Fascinating. So essentially, this community adopted you as one of their own.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you go home often while you stayed in the States?
Summertime was the only time I went home, and I think Pesach was the other time I would go home because it was a long holiday, and it's a family holiday basically.
So if I could ask, who was paying for those trips? Was it the yeshiva?
That was us.
Your family.
Yeah, family and.
So you were still connected to your family, obviously.
You're going 100%.
Home, they were still taking care of your trips. Okay.
And actually, my second year there, I got my brother Ronnie to come
to the
yeshiva, and it took him about 20 minutes to say, "Not for me."
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. Like, why didn't you say that?
Different person.
You liked it.
Different person.
I'm saying you could have said that. Is my point.
Don't forget, I just came from 3 weeks of camp, so I was.
Yeah, but it wears off after a while.
But I understand, in the back of my mind, this is a place that had to be because it was going to save the family money. Simple as that.
So it started off as like you understood a maturity thing. You understood you had to be there.
So and I did, but after a while, I mean.
When did you feel that you wanted to be there?
Pretty much the first year. Once I was in there for
Okay.
a while, I became part of what was going on there. But from the outside, I mean, we had all kinds of seasons there. They had baseball card seasons. They had we used to do things with bottle caps and whatever. And I remember this one time that on the English holidays like President's Day, all the schools were off. We would learn till 3 o'clock. Of course, we had lunch, and then we had a break for lunch, but until 3 o'clock, and then the English teacher didn't come, so we had the afternoon off. Then we did Chazara and night Seder at night. So we had those 3 hours there, but it was a day that the Italians and the Spanish people that lived in the neighborhood, the boys and whatever, had the day off. So at lunchtime, we got, as we always do, and they were never there, but this was the holiday that they were. So we're playing punch ball on Grant Square. We were in Grant's Democratic building, which he used back into the 1800s when he was running, and they made a square in front of the building that it was shaped like a diamond almost. It went like this.
Right.
Okay, and then, so we were playing. And so then these... the neighborhood kids came over and said, "Get off, we're playing." I said, No, we don't get off. And as they're being more pushy, I'm noticing that all the other guys that was there with me are slowly slinking across the street to get away from the thing, and it's just me. So finally I say to this guy, I said, "Listen, I got 30 minutes exercise. If it's playing punch ball or beating you up, I don't care what it's going to be." And I start taking off my shirt. Okay? So he says, whoa, wait a second. I said, "What do you want?" He says, "Wait for the big guy to get here." I said, "I'm not waiting for anybody. It's you and me." And he says, "Well, we want a challenge for the court." So we did the challenge, and all the guys came back over, But there was a guy Sam Levine, became a principal in a couple of day schools in Cleveland and whatever. Good guy. And from Massachusetts, actually, from Worcester. And the first time I met him, we were playing punch ball in the gym, and he hit a ball in the corner of the
Wait,
gym.
he was also in Bedford and Dean?
He was in Bedford and Dean too, yeah.
Huh.
So he hit a ball in the corner of the gym, and he was already rounding second and coming towards third when the guy got the ball, and he threw it to me at third base. But Sam was about 2 feet or 3 feet from hitting third base, touching third base. So I caught the ball in the air, and he just swung my arm and hit him before he was able to put his foot on third base. And he comes up like this, wants to fight. I never met him before, right? He comes up and wants to fight. Sam Levine. He wants to fight because I hit him.
Right.
I said, "I didn't hit you. You're out."
I tagged you.
And I threw the ball in the air. And he says, "Oh." Okay, so now we're these Scotsmen, right? And they're challenging for this guy hits the ball in the street, and I throw the ball as hard as I can. And Sam was on first base. He came to the home plate, and I threw the ball just to his left. And as he got the ball, he swung his arm and tagged the guy hard before he touched home plate. And the guy comes like this. He's ready to fight, because he thinks he got hit with this guy. And Sam's, "No, you're out." Just like I did to him. "You're out." And we had this sickle. So what happened was years later we were in the Dan Panorama Hotel. We stayed for Sukkot, okay? And one of the first Yontif nights, in comes Sam Levine with his family, and he says hello. He didn't know I was there. He says hello and whatever, and start talking and whatever. So he goes to his table. We were at our table, and then about 10 minutes later, a couple of his sons come over. "Are you really the Dave Shabat that my father talks about all the time?"
That's funny. That's funny.
I said, "Yeah. I mean, I got known for sports instead of something else, but all right,
I mean, the whole thing is fascinating. This intermingling of, Washington boy with the Brooklyn boys. I don't know where this Sam Levine came from, but
Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester, Massachusetts. I guess from Rabbi Fogelman's school.
Yeah.
And then he went on to be a principal of non-Lubavitch schools. Right? He wasn't. I guess he also didn't consider himself Lubavitch either.
I know.
Maybe friendly.
I still daven Nosachari.
Oh, so you do?
I did a lot of.
But you know what I mean. It's not about like excluding people. It's more, if you met him, would you assume that he went to Lubavitch school? No. And so, but it's just fascinating, this history that like.
If you see me and I didn't have a yarmulke on, you would think I was.
Yeah. No. I'm not trying to say better or worse. I think like today where things are so much more like obvious and black and white. Like which school did you go to? Where did you know which
Yeah.
group did you associate with?
Sure.
Things were a lot more up in the air back then, right? And so you have this school that's a lot more like a melting pot, which is fascinating. So you were talking earlier.
You know what the beauty was? Is
Yeah.
whether you were from or not, everybody got along.
Right.
And everybody was friends. It was a very special thing. It was a Lubavitch thing.
Yeah.
Blend in and be part of the people. I mean,
Right.
and that's what it felt like. It was really. I mean,
It was
very
Lubavitch.
special.
It was a Lubavitch thing, but I've also heard it from others at that time. You know, it was there were fewer of us. It was right after the war. There were fewer Jews in general, certainly in this country. There were fewer religious Jews in this country, and people understood that they didn't have the luxury of doing it on their own. They had to do it with others, right? You took all the help you could get. So it was a different time, and I'm not trying to wax nostalgic about it. I just think it's an important kind of piece of history to know about. So you were saying earlier that you would eat by the floors on Shabbos, and they daven at 770. So that's where the story goes from, Washington, D.C., Gan Israel, Bedford and Dean, Rabbi Tenenbaum, Rabbi Shraga. Now we start getting to the meat of Lubavitch, and then of course, what we would end up talking about is the Rebbe, right? What was that like for you as a Washington, D.C. boy? Like, what was the first Shabbos like? Was that the first time you saw the Rebbe when you got there?
Yeah, pretty much.
What was that like?
I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember. It wasn't anything significant for me at the time because the Rebbe didn't mean anything to me at that point.
Right.
He was the head guy. Okay.
Another rabbi, right?
Yeah, the head guy, big deal. Okay.
Right. Right.
So, but later on,
was it something that they spoke about in school?
not much.
Not much.
No, we learned. We did stuff. I mean,
Right.
But
right. But I'm saying like it wasn't like a big part of the school. Like you're going to see the Rebbe. Like this is
no. It was, at least from my perspective at the time, it wasn't so much the Rebbe. It was learning and advancing and understanding and learning how to become a firm person.
Right. So in the beginning, the Rebbe was just. I mean, you're also 10 years old. To be fair, you're 10 years old.
Yeah.
So what did stand out to you, or did anything stand out to you when you first come to the shul? And now I would guess that now it's beginning to feel a little bit different than Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah. You know what the amazing thing was? The amazing thing was Friday night, you come to daven. In those days, we daven upstairs in 770. Okay?
Right.
There wasn't that many guys.
I don't think there was a downstairs 770 back then.
No, they had the area there. They had the sukkah.
The courtyard.
Yeah, the courtyard.
But there was no like shul downstairs.
No. Now they built out the whole building.
Right.
But in those days, everybody davened. The Rebbe's office, and then there's a hallway, and there's a room over there.
And the base medrash, right?
That's where everybody davened.
Right.
Okay, and that's what it was. I mean, and so it didn't feel anything.
And what was that like for you?
Nothing. I mean, it was a shul.
It was the first time you're seeing a real shul.
Not first a real. I davened in D.C. But the thing was, it was my first experience with the Rebbe, and it was like more of a so what? Just another. I mean, he's another guy. I mean, what did I know? What did I see? Okay, until later on, I learned a lot more about him. I mean, I remember one night. There's a murmur going around 770. Well, this was, I think, it was on a Shabbos, Friday night. And what was the murmur? There was a lady that gave birth to a baby in Montreal. The baby wasn't doing well, and the medications they were giving her, the baby wasn't getting better. So they called the Rebbe for a bracha for the baby to get better. The Rebbe didn't give him a bracha. He said back to them, check the medications. No bracha, medication. Get a call, Motzoi Shabbos. They checked the medications. She was given the wrong medication, the baby. And now that she's on the right medication, she's getting better. You tell me.
So how old were you when you heard that story?
I don't know, about 14 or something like that.
So a few years after you got there.
So that, how does a guy do that?
Right.
I mean, there's got to be something. I mean, if believe, not believe, want to believe, don't want to believe. This happened while I was there. I heard it happen.
So how did you process it?
I processed it by respecting the Rebbe a lot more than I ever did. I mean, to me, he was just another guy. I remember, I think I was 15. I bought my first pair of shoes personally. It was always bought through my parents, my family, whatever. All my clothes was, but here I needed a pair of shoes, and I wasn't in yeshiva, so I got $10 or whatever, and I went out and bought a pair of Tom McCann's. Okay, so I went to the store, and this is my first pair of shoes, and I'm looking through the store, and I see a patent leather black shoes, which I said, wow, I've never seen it, because they don't wear patent leather in Lubavitch. So I said, I like that. And then there was one that had little gold rings, about a fifth of a tenth of the size of this water bottle cap. Little rings going around the toe of the shoe. Huh. And I said, Stadi, I said, that is great.
Right.
That is great. I want to wear them in shul tonight. I bought them. Huh. Okay? So here it is, Friday night. I'm in 770 with a throng of people that are waiting for the Rebbe to come down. And the Rebbe comes down. This time, his aisle that they create, everybody just moves in the create aisle straight to his seat. This time, the aisle opens up. I'm on the outside. Where the Rebbe walks. I'm on the path. I'm on the pathway.
You're in the front row.
So here, the path goes this way,
right.
And I'm on one of the sides. I was on the left side.
Right.
So the Rebbe comes through there and he's saying, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. And then he gets to me, he says, Good Shabbos. He goes, he looks at the shoes and goes, huh? And then he catches himself. He goes, oh, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. He goes on. He goes, what? So I got the Rebbe's attention with a pair of shoes. But just, I mean, the time there. I mean, I could have gone to any yeshiva. I mean, I could have gone to
Tarvadas.
Any.
Right.
There's only one Rebbe. I took Rebbe one night where I was at a wedding at the Imperial Manor in Brooklyn. It was a wedding hall on Kings Highway near Ocean Parkway, right? So I'm in the lobby, and my wife is upstairs. And
so this is years later.
This is years later. This is after I'm out of yeshiva already. I'm married already, right?
Right.
And there's these two bachrim saying, you take him. No, I took him last time. You take him. I don't want to take him. It's your turn. And I said, who's got to take who? What's going on over here? What's this fierce argument about take who?
Right.
Said, one of us has to take Reb Moshe home after the chasana.
Moshe Feinstein.
Yeah. I said, that's not true. They go, huh? I said, I'll take Reb Moshe home. Are you kidding? Drive Reb Moshe home? Are you kidding? Right. To me, that was like, God. Right. I mean, how lucky can you get to drive him home?
Right.
So the time came. I told my wife, I said, I'll be gone for an hour because I'm taking Reb Moshe home. She said, we're here at a wedding. What are you doing? Whatever. So I get in the car with another guy, and I'm taking him to the yeshiva on the Lower East Side. And as we're driving, he interrupts himself. He says, if you make a left at this right and do the second right, we'll save 30 seconds.
That's what Moshe said.
Yeah. And I go, huh? He knows the streets? He knows the streets to save time? I know the streets, but it'll be 30 seconds faster. I mean, what is this guy? I mean, this guy is something else.
Right.
I mean, the heck with Torah. I mean, seriously, this guy is connected. This guy is a real deal.
This is impressive.
And it just blew me away. It just blew me away. And he's not the one I would go to check whether I should change the medication or not. Like the lady in Toronto. I would go to the Rebbe for that. But if I wanted directions, I would go to Rebbe Moshe.
Right. So you when did you start, or was there a point where they started encouraging you in the yeshiva to go into yechidus, or like is there a point where you start interacting with the Rebbe directly?
Birthdays.
What, from the very get-go?
From the very get-go. The birthday was you would go into the Rebbe for bracha.
Every boy in the school, or the dorm boys?
I don't know if every boy in the school, but for me, this is the way I was taught to do it.
So your 11th birthday, You went in.
I was a little bit later than that.
So bar mitzvah.
I was too young to do. I
So
mean,
bar
because I'm not
mitzvah.
going to be able to go there by myself.
So bar mitzvah.
So sometime after that, sometime in my teen years is when it started going.
Okay. What was that like?
It's like,
I mean, first of all, go ahead.
you know basketball. Larry Bird is one of the greatest players,
Right.
and everybody wants to be know Larry Bird or be with Larry Bird. Okay, so I'm saying being with the Rebbe is a million times better than being with a guy like Larry Bird. That's someone that you've held in esteem all your life. But the Rebbe was just you walked in the room with him, you felt it.
Okay, paint the picture to me. Who coaches you about the yechidus? Who tells you what this is about?
I'm not sure it was Rabbi Groner or Rabbi Klein. I mean,
No, but from the school, someone
the
tells
school.
you what it is. Like, this is how you should prepare. This is what you should write.
The custom is that you go to the Rebbe for your birthday, get a bracha.
Right.
That's all
That's all they told you.
That's all it was. I mean, it wasn't. And I guess as
So you walk in. You're not wearing a black hat, right? You don't do that. You're wearing a suit. What are you doing?
I don't even think I wore a suit.
Button down shirt, pair of pants.
Pretty much.
Knock on the door.
No, Rabbi Groner opens the door.
And he's in there with you?
No, and then he closes the door. And I never forget when my first wife, when we went to the Rebbe for a bracha, right? And so he says, Dave, it's almost 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, the Rebbe, everybody comes to daven with the Rebbe for Ma'ariv. You don't have to wait till after. Yeah, but the Rebbe's going to daven Ma'ariv 15 minutes. Then he's going to come and eat something and rest up a little between the yechidus. And then he'll start in 45 minutes. So and then I have to take this girl to Stern College. It's a 45-minute at least or an hour ride by subway if you get the train right away.
You're talking about when you went in for a bracha before you got engaged.
I was engaged, but as a
Before the
bracha,
wedding.
right, from the Rebbe. I mean, we already decided we're going to get married, so I wanted that. Now we're going to get a bracha for the marriage.
For the marriage, right.
So I said, I won't be able to make morning Seder. I'll be back 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, please. I mean, it's just a minute. It's just a bracha for a chasana. You know what the Rebbe takes for that. It's just a minute.
This is Rabbi Groner or Rabbi Chadikov?
Groner. I think it was Rabbi Groner. And so we go in, and all of a sudden, I'm starting to find out things about my wife-to-be's grandfather. As a 10-year-old, he left home and walked days to Brisk Yeshiva.
Wait, the Rebbe was asking
my future wife about her grandfather.
And she was telling him.
And she was telling him these things.
The Rebbe knew him from before?
He had no idea who he was.
He was just asking.
He got something from me. He didn't ask about my grandfather. Uh-huh. Okay? And then he as a 10-year-old, he walked to Brisk, ate whatever they had there as meal, and slept on the bench till the next day. He did that for about 10 days, and finally someone realized that that's what he was doing, and they took him into their house.
Right.
And he got smicha there. He was a.
Was the Rebbe looking? Did the Rebbe draw something out of that, like a message for you?
I don't remember. I mean, but what blew me away was he could feel in her something that I have no idea, and I should have maybe had an idea because I know the guy, you know. I mean, but
you had met your father-in-law before?
Yeah. Her grandfather.
It was her grandfather.
Her grandfather. So I met him, but yes, he knew Benshi Bahar. Yes, he could learn. Yes, he could do all this. So,
right.
But I didn't know a 10-year-old. Can you imagine? Can you imagine you leaving your house at 10 years old and walking for days to go to yeshiva?
Well,
and then sleep on the bench?
I can imagine the leaving home at 10 years old. I can't imagine the rest of it. I left home at that age.
Okay, so
but a lot more comfortable.
But here's what this guy did.
Yes.
And
so
you wouldn't. I mean, I didn't know.
But let's go back to the first yechidus, or one of the first ones that you remember. You walk in. Rabbi Groner opens the door, and then closes it behind you. What are you asking? What does it look like? Describe it to someone who's never seen a picture.
No, he knows that you're here for bracha for the birthday.
You say something,
and he gives you a bracha, and I said thank you, and then I'm out.
What language did he give you a
English.
bracha? He spoke to you in English.
If you spoke English, he spoke English.
And what's a bracha? That you should have a good year?
I don't remember.
Okay, so you weren't asking for advice at that point?
Oh,
or
no, nothing
questions.
at all.
It was
This was just a bracha. You go in, you get your bracha, and you're out.
And what did it mean something to you at the time?
Custom.
Custom.
This is what you do if you're in Lubavitch.
Right.
But it didn't mean anything that... I didn't see a change in my life any.
Did at some point?
But I don't know that, because who knows what the life would have been without the bracha. I don't know.
At some point, did it start meaning more?
Not for me. Not for me. I mean, there is no question in my mind that the Rebbe had a connection that probably few people, if anybody else, ever had at the time he was around.
Connection with what?
Kadosh Baruch Hu. He had a connection. I remember once some soldiers from Israel came for a bracha for him because of the war that was going on. I'm not sure which war it was then. And the Rebbe's telling him, this hill, you can't lose it. This over here, you have to make sure you protect it and keep it. And he's going on with these things. So when they came out, they said, these are all important places. How does he know that? Did he go to Israel and get a tour?
Right.
Rebbe's never been to Israel. But he knew these things were strategic for him, and he made sure that they knew that was something you got to keep at all costs to keep Israel going.
Homesick for Lubavitch is brought to you by Yuvla Media, a boutique video production company servicing the Chabad and Jewish community. Since opening 10 years ago, Yuvla Media has pushed the boundaries of artistic and thoughtful storytelling in the community, with an insistence on there always being a memorable story as well as a beautiful and striking visual image that we believe is second to none. Over the years, we have worked with Chabad organizations around the country, as well as large organizations like Boni Olam, Torah Masora, and Atzalathon, guided by the belief that your story is absolutely worth telling with depth and creativity. If you are looking to tell your story with a video, please reach out to us at hello@yuvlamedia.com. Again, that is hello@yuvlamedia.com. A link can be found in the show notes. And now, back to the podcast. So let me ask you a question. You'll tell me if I'm pushing too hard. But you're in the presence of someone that's at the very least very unusual, right?
I would say special.
Right. There are many stories. No, I'm painting it as conservative as possible, like without any hyperbole or anything. Right. A unique individual, certainly a charismatic individual, and a holy individual, right? There are many people who have said that, they were so impressed by the Rebbe and so impressed by the world around him, the court around him, that it drew them into becoming full-blown Lubavitchers, right? You didn't take that path.
I was younger too.
No, but you were there for many years. You said.
Yeah, but I was younger. I mean, it was that.
Right. No. I'm not putting
these people are looking for something at that point.
So that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm not putting you on the stand. I find it. I just find it. I find. Was there any pressure or any people trying to proselytize, pull you in? Let's make David a full-blown Lubavitcher, or in your mind there was just maybe processes this is just part of life. Life has taken me a bunch.
The only time I have anything that I can remember like that, and it was a negative for me. Okay, see my hair. I've had that almost forever. As far as this head of hair and cut this way, it hasn't changed.
It's real, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm in Rabbi Goldman's class, the eighth grade.
Is that Rabbi Shimon Goldman?
No. I don't remember his first name. But he taught the 8th grade in Hebrew studies. Okay? And my seat, here's the desk. And on the right-hand side where the desks were, I was right in front of him. So whenever he stand to talk, or wherever I was right, I got it straight from his mouth. I didn't hear from 10 feet back or whatever.
He was a good teacher?
He was a good teacher, but I was in tune. I'm ready. Bring it on. And I was doing so well that after Rabbi Tenenbaum came in and tested the class, About a week later, he calls me in the class and says, Dave, he says, I think your ability is that you should go to a grade higher than what you are now. I think you can do it. I think it'd be something good for you and something, yeah. I said, great. He says, but there's one condition. I said, what's that? He says, you have to cut your hair. 0, 1, 2, or 2.
You're saying like the chassidim. Just leave
Yeah,
the,
0, the rate has 0, 1, and 2, and they just
leave the payas.
Just leave the pass and just do that. And I said, why? He said, because that grade up is all Lubavitch chassidim, and to have you in there with your hair might cause problems. I said, Rabbi Tenenbaum, I said, you mean to tell me that I deserve to go into that class, but because of the way I look, I can't? He said, basically, yes. I said, well, when you change your mind, you call me. Because as of today, I stopped learning. That's it. So I went to class and got my Gemara and sat down in the back and went to sleep. And Rabbi Coleman's going, what the heck is going on? So that was towards the end of the year already. So next year I got put in a class with a lot of the American kids that didn't have much background, and they were a little difficult. Okay, so after 2 days, Rabbi Brisky was the Rebbe, good guy. He was the Rebbe. So what happened is that after 2 days of him pulling at his hair because these kids didn't want to learn, and they making all kinds of noise, whatever they were doing. So I go over to the guys and I said, hey guys, how would you like to have a 20-minute coffee break in the middle of the day? Really? What do we got to do? I said, all you got to do is be respectful, don't make noise in class, and try as hard as you can to study. If you do that, I'll see if I can get you a 20-minute coffee break in the middle of the day. Okay. So I go to Rabbi Brisky and say, Rabbi Brisky, I said, how would you like to have an easy class? And kids at least trying, not that they're going to know, but at least going to be trying, and they won't be disruptive, and they won't be. He said, really? He says, what do I got to do? I said, you got to give them a 15-minute coffee break in the middle of the day, and your life will change. He says, okay, we'll try it for a week. Well, a week was the rest of the year. He was so happy, and the kids studied, and then it was that year that Rabbi Jacobson and Rabbi Tenenbaum used to come in and test, every 3 months or whatever. So he was coming in to test the class, okay? And this time with Rabbi Jacobson, because he was now looking for kids to fill a new school he was doing that knew how to learn. So these guys come in. We talked about that a little while ago. But for
the people listening here,
yeah, okay. So what happened is that.
Was this the first time you were meeting Rabbi Jacobson?
Yes.
So describe him
white beard, nice, pleasant, nice guy, seemingly a nice guy, very quiet, reserved.
Tall, short.
He was about 5'5", something like that. White beard, nice, full-sized white beard.
Oh, so he was older already at that time.
Oh yeah, I mean at Fabrengens, he was one of the guys that sat behind the Rebbe.
Right.
So he was no slouch.
No slouch.
Okay, so.
I mean, for people listening who aren't familiar, Rabbi Jacobson was sent by the previous Rebbe to.
Right, to establish a base here for them to come in and become part of the American.
Right, he came before the previous Rebbe.
Oh yeah, he came. He set everything up. He got it all going.
And he was very much involved in the rescue, the Fidek Rebbe, and so on.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Very special guy. So after I did my thing.
How was his English?
English was so good. I mean, he had to speak with people.
Right.
I mean, he came to it may not have been in his first couple of years here.
I'm saying he struck you as like Americanized at all, or.
Yeah, he's a regular guy.
Regular guy.
A regular guy, but a special regular guy.
Right.
So after I did my thing, I said, excuse me, I said, I don't understand something. I have a question. So they said, ask your question. So I asked the question, and Rabbi Brisky and Rabbi Jacobson didn't know the answer.
A question on the Gemara.
On the Gemara. Huh. And they didn't know the answer. So at that point, Rabbi Jacobson said, I want him. So he had his eyes out for me. So now he's after me to come to this thing he's starting, because that was my senior year in high school, and he wanted me to come here and be part of the group.
So tell us a little bit about this group. What was this group?
This group was which music taught there? The guy in England, Shmuley Lou, was one of the teachers there.
He's a teacher.
Yeah, he was part of the group. Yeah, yeah.
So he was already older.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he was teaching.
He's older than me too. So
what was this group? It was a.
So what he did, Rabbi Jacobson got guys that had no background to come in, and they would learn, and they would get hashkafa, and they would get different things.
And they sat where in the 770?
The area we use, the women's section in 770.
The small women's section upstairs.
Yeah. So before they got all the buildings and everything, there used to be a sukkah there. Right. And there was a ledge that people would look at, and the Rebbe would have it for bringing. He would sit opposite that, and the ladies could hear what he was talking about.
Oh, you're talking about outside?
There was no... when you're facing 770, to the left, there was a driveway to go through.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then it went down, and then there was a back area. I don't know if there's a building there before, but that's where they used to put the sukkah.
Right.
And the sukkah at one point stayed up all year round. And on Shabbos B'Vorchim, the Rebbe would do his talks there.
Right. And
so, because there's room for everybody, and it grew and grew and it grew. I still remember, I don't know if I said this before or not, but the Bachrim, there was so little space. You know those long benches that they have at the table that's the size of an 8-foot table?
Right.
8-foot bench? So they would put 4 benches against the wall. One, 2, 3, 4 on the ground, and then they take another 3. The wall... It's next to the wall, so now there's a bench that has nothing on it, and they do that 4 times. So the Bachrim could stand on the benches 1, 2, 3, 4 high, so there'd be enough room, and they were taking space that would take one person. Now they're getting 4 or 5 people in there, so that there would be enough space for everybody to hear the Rebbe. And so the first time I saw it, whoa. They don't do that now. I mean, I'm sure not. There's no Rebbe talking.
You spent a lot of time at the Fabrengens?
It's once a month.
As you would go?
I would go. I mean,
At that point, you understood enough Yiddish to understand what was being said?
I understand, but I would go because you sort of had to be there. And if, once you're seen or whatever, I mean, and they couldn't tell if you're there or not after because it's so crowded. I mean, I'd go and be seen and want to listen. And the Rebbe's voice was very quiet. You could hear it, but it wasn't something that registered well with me. So
on Shabbos?
When he did these Fabrengens, yeah.
The Shabbos ones, right?
Right. So...
so you would go for a little bit and leave?
Yeah, and the truth is, everybody else knew the Fabrengens, so all the young Israel people and all the other ones would come around and be outside, so they would meet and have a little get-together. Outside
the Fabrengens?
On the Eastern Parkway. They come outside, they have the service area there, the service road, then you have the benches and stuff, and then you have the main road on both sides of the street. So people would be there and they would get together. This was a Shabbos event, and they knew every Shabbos B'Vorchim was the schedule that they could be there because people would be there. So they had their own thing going that aside from what the Rebbe's actually
was. Like the tailgate almost, like a tailgate.
Well, yeah, the tailgate is still part of the Fabrengen. These guys weren't part of the Fabrengen. They were there just to socialize.
No, but I'm saying the tailgate's like outside the stadium.
Right. But the guys at the tailgate were very interested in what was going on in the stadium. These people weren't interested in what was going on. They were there just to socialize.
I see. So you went between the two. You would go from the ring and go socialize.
Yeah, but I made a lot of friends that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Was there anything about the Fabrengens that stand out to you today? Any moments that?
The thing that stands out, okay, is how this one individual could know so much and have it all up in their head. To me, that was the most mind-blowing thing. He would give these Fabrengens that they would then write down. They had 8 people memorizing what he's doing, and then afterwards they write it down after Shabbos. They write it down to make sure that, and to get it right, so they have the sicha, whatever the Rebbe talked. But he had it all up here. The guy was phenomenal. I mean, forget about the potential that you can call him a tzaddik. All that. The guy had a mind that was way out of sight. It was just unbelievable. And it's stuff that nobody does. The stuff that he was teaching and talking about wasn't stuff that people were doing. It wasn't something that he could open a book and say, okay, I'll do this today.
Right.
Okay, this is stuff he was doing on his own.
Original.
Yeah. My God. I mean, the Rebbe, was just above and beyond.
So you said earlier that you could have switched to another yeshiva and you didn't. What is that why?
I don't know why. I mean, I was very comfortable there, and I had my sports.
In your sports. Okay, so let's talk about Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson and this yeshiva. You said it was in the women's section.
That's where they placed it, but
How many of you guys were there?
I don't know. It started with 6 or 8, and it got to be 20 or more. And then when I left, I got married, had to go to work.
So you were there for what, 10 years almost?
Not up there. Up there was about a year and a half.
Okay, so you were you were Bedford and Dean from about 10 years old to when you were about 18, let's say.
Yeah, so that was 8 years or so, right?
And then you were another year.
Another year and a half, 2 years maybe.
Upstairs.
With Rabbi Jacobson, yes.
What was that like?
It was very unorganized. It was very free. I mean, it.
Was that the Hadar Torah yeshiva?
Hadar Torah, right?
So that was the first years of Hadar Torah?
And we used to call it how to retire.
How to retire?
Yeah.
That's what you called it?
That's what we used to call it, because if you came, there was no one checking up on you. You had to want to learn, you had to want to be.
Right.
There was no one who would say, you didn't show up today.
Right, so the other boys were coming from like college campuses?
College campuses, and yeah. And they.
So you were probably from the more learned guys in that program.
Yeah, I would say. I would say, but these guys were motivated.
The other college students.
Yeah, they wanted to know. I mean, they reached a point when they looked out the window and saw there's nothing there. They wanted to see something. They wanted to see what.
Did you interact when you once you're studying now in 770 for a year and a half, 2 years? Did you interact with any of the other Bachurim that are in the main Chabad yeshiva? Did you start mingling with them?
Shlomo Kunin, you know him?
I've heard of him, yes.
Kos Weiss?
I've heard of him.
Levitansky? Avram Levitansky?
I heard all these names.
These were all guys that were in my time.
So you guys would hang out together?
And Mr. England, Mr.
Rabbi Lou.
Rabbi Shmuley, yeah.
But he was a teacher, you said.
He wasn't. He was of higher caliber because he was there. Uh-huh. So he worked with us, and he became like a mentor, a teacher type thing for us. But you could say he was a teacher, but I don't think that would demean what he really was.
He was a friend.
He was a derech that you had to follow.
Huh.
Yeah, he was a way. He was it. He was an aspiration.
A passionate guy, huh?
Passionate. He was just so special.
What were you pointing at there before?
Nothing. I was thinking there. I'm seeing sitting on the bench up in the ladies section, and I'm pointing to him.
To Shmuel.
Yeah. What's the guy in California? What's his name?
Rabbi Kunin?
Yeah, Bob. We used to call him Bob.
Shlomo.
Bob. In the yeshiva, he was Bob.
He was Bob Kunin.
Until he became Shlomo. He changed the name to Shlomo, but he was Bob when I first met him. Bob Kunin. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine calling him Bob now?
And how did that strike you?
Oh, that's nothing wrong with that.
No, not his name, Bob. But like, how did he strike you? Like, what? How did these guys strike? How did these guys strike you?
They were just guys in school.
Did you at that point?
I didn't learn with them. They were different levels than me, so I really didn't get to know them that well.
You're talking about like learning knowledge levels and like, but in terms of I didn't
learn with them, so I didn't. Shmuley Lou we did because afterwards it was.
But I'm sure you hung out together in between learning.
Not much. There was a lot of people in the yeshiva. There was groups that did.
So you kept to yourself, basically.
They had a group of guys that were less Lubavitch than Lubavitchers are.
And so you guys kept to yourselves?
I kept to ourselves, but these were our friends. I mean, these were the guys you associated with. Mm-hmm. I mean, after lunch, all the Lubavitchers we're going to go back and study now. We have 15 minutes before Zaman starts, so we're going to practice a little bit, And my guys say, huh? Are you kidding me? We don't have to be there for 15 minutes. What are you doing?
Right.
Don't ruin it for us. If you can make it, we can make it. They're going to go after us. Don't do it,
But could you guys share a joke? Could you relate to each other?
A joke? Oh, you mean Nah, there wasn't that. There wasn't that kind of stuff. No, they were a level above. They were a level above. I mean, we're there because we're all there, but I couldn't touch them. I couldn't.
And you were comfortable in that space.
Yeah, I was comfortable. Listen, I remember one time we had night seder because I was in the dorm, so there was about 60 or 70 guys doing night seder an hour after dinner, 8 to 9 o'clock.
This is Bedford and Dean?
Bedford and Dean. Bedford and Dean.
Okay.
Okay. So I had a chavrusa that knew the stuff. I was, I don't know, 14 or 15, and he was maybe 10, but he knew the Gemara cold because he's a Lubavitcher, and I'm a rookie, so to speak. But I was good. I kept my own. So one night we get to talking, and I tell him that I don't believe there's really a God. He says, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "You can't prove to me there's a God." He says, "Yes, I can." So we spent 15 minutes or so discussing, and I kept saying, "You say that? All it is an ice cream cone. That's what you're saying. God is an ice cream cone because that's what it is to me. That doesn't prove a God there at all." And they heard us arguing, so the Beis Medrash slowly but surely stopped learning and came to hear what was going on.
This is upstairs. This is
Bedford and Dean.
Bedford
and Dean. I don't know. Bedford and Dean did about 250 people in the Beis Medrash. It was not a big place. Mm-hmm. They didn't seat that many because there wasn't that many there. But so we're going and we're talking. I'm just throwing out shtus. I mean, it just
you're provoking him
for sure.
Right.
For sure. And then we're going on, and it says, I said, "You can't prove to me that there's a God."
Right.
And he's trying. And this little kid, who was, I don't know why he was there, but he was part of it. He was a good 3 years younger than us. He says, "This is ridiculous." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You can't prove there's God. It's faith. You have to have a emunah that there's God. That's the only way there's God."
That's what you said.
That's what this little kid said.
That's what the little kid said.
And as soon as he said that, closed the book, and walked away. I said, he got it.
Huh.
This whole thing is emunah. If you don't have right emunah, if you don't have emunah, you got it. It's not there. You can learn, you can study. I mean, all these guys study this stuff, and they don't have the faith. You've
spoken a lot about, or mentioned a few times, the Gemara that you learned. You were in the Lubavitch yeshiva, and Lubavitch is known, of course, for its Chabad, right?
Yeah.
Did you study that at all? Did it leave some kind of impression on you?
You mean Chassidus?
Yes. Chassidus.
Yeah, we had classes
in Bedford and Dean, or
in Bedford and Dean, and also there. Yeah.
And did it leave an impression on you?
I don't think that in itself did, but the impression was the people that were Lubavitchers. That left an impression on me.
Well, explain.
They were special people, they were considerate people, they were learned people, and they were dedicated people. And as far as I was concerned, that's the kind of people, the dedication, the concern, and all the stuff that they do about this particular thing. Religion is phenomenal, And I said, that's the way I got to be with whatever I do. That's got to be the basis. That's got to be the bottom line. And with that, every business that I was in, and I was mostly with the Jewish community in the businesses that I was in, but I became the guy. Mm. People trusted me. People, and so I got business from the community. Plus, once they told their friends or they saw how I did stuff, then I started growing out of the community.
So you had a lot of respect for them as people, as individuals, the way they carried themselves and the way they treated others.
Very. You know what? You can learn all you want, but machshava l'maisa you don't get all the time.
Right. Right.
Boy, Machshava Moisa really got you going there.
I was going to ask you something, and then I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was. Amen. So the study of Chassidus unto itself did not grab at you.
No, but the way that people were, the way they did, I still remember in the dorm in the yeshiva using bottle caps. In those days, they had bottle caps, not like these. They were metal. You had to pop the can up with a can opener.
Sure.
Okay. That was our menorah. We'd put 3 or 4 for the shamash, and then we put on down. We cut little pieces of what do you call it, a wick, and we put oil in each of the things,
right.
And that was our menorah. That's what we did for our menorah. Can you imagine that? Probably nobody even would think about that nowadays. But we use bottle, and there's no bottle caps. I mean, these are plastic, so these wouldn't work with a fire. But it was. I mean.
Did you have any Lubavitcher roommates back then?
No.
They kept it separate.
No, the dorm guys weren't Lubavitchers.
Weren't Lubavitchers. So at that time, you're talking about the late 50s, early 60s, is when the first shluchim are going out, like to live, not just the bachrim that you were talking about earlier, but the Rebbe was talking about families out,
Shlomo
couples
Kunin.
out. Right.
Yeah, it was Klaus Weiss in Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Correct. Shmulilu in
London eventually, yes. So was that something that you had all paid attention to? Was that something that meant anything to you back then?
No, not that I can think of.
Right.
I knew it would never be me.
Right.
Okay, I'm not going to tell someone how to live. And
no, but did you think you were ever going to do that? Was it something that stuck out to you as like, this is interesting, this is different, this is a game changer of sorts?
The only thing I thought of is that instead of having people come for a short time to a city, like with me, they came for 2 weeks, going around and talking, and then they were gone.
Right.
By having somebody in the city would change things dramatically. I mean, now you have something you can build on. And I mean, I'm trying to think. Did anybody else actually? No other chassidim did that. Only the Rebbe sends people out and giving, and the purpose wasn't to spread. The purpose was to teach and to give people an opportunity to become religious.
Right.
Wow.
But at the time, it wasn't something that people were talking about. Because what's interesting to me is
not with me.
I mean, but like in the circles outside 770, outside the Fabringen.
I don't know.
That wasn't something.
No, because not a whole lot of people didn't really know about it.
Right.
You see the Rebbe. The Rebbe says you're going to Seattle, Washington. Oh, really?
Right. No, look. I mean, it may seem to you like I'm not sure if I'm not sure if my line of questioning even makes sense to you, but like, to me, what's so interesting is that in the Lubavitch world, those Fabringens that you're talking about, or that whole space of 770 that was Fabringen, is almost there's such a force of gravity to it that nothing exists around it. Like nothing else exists. Like that is Crown Heights in those days. That is Eastern Parkway in those days, right?
No, only if you're in Lubavitch.
Right.
Only if you're Lubavitch, because there was a lot of there were a lot of other shuls there in those days. I mean, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can think of right off.
Right. So of course. So I would think that most people listening to this know that and are aware of that. But what's interesting in your story is that you had one foot in both, right?
Yeah.
You were not.
I'm double dipping.
Bialystoker, or I forget, or the Bobovers, they had their steeples in different parts of Crown Heights, and maybe they never even went into 770. Like you said, you would walk into the Fabringen, kind of pay your dues, see what's going on, and then when you were done, you walked outside and hung out with your friends. You didn't feel that obligation necessarily to sit at the Fabringen till the end.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's just there's I just think it's in a way that's just maybe for people listening to this, it's obvious, all of this, and when you think about it, it is quite obvious. But I just think it's very important to remember that, like when shlichus started, for example, the idea of sending shluchim out. If you were standing even a few feet away from 770, like you were, that wasn't some historic event. People didn't even notice it. It was
Didn't know what was happening.
right. And like you're looking at me like, of course not. But like to me, always thinking about history now in retrospect, there are narratives that are formed, and I just find it very 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 important to remember. It doesn't to me that doesn't minimize what those things were, but it makes them more real and grounded in reality. Like the Rebbe was sending out people on shlichus in a world where even just a few feet away, nobody really even cared.
Right.
That to me makes it a bigger accomplishment.
I just want to give you a little comparison here.
Sure.
It's like this baker makes the greatest apple pie.
Right.
Okay. And someone tasted it and took it back to his city.
Right.
And people there tasted it and said, "Oh my God. Okay, how do we get more of this?"
Right.
Apple pie is a shliach that goes from Crown Heights or wherever they were and goes to another place and starts showing people what Yiddishkeit is. And then it's, once you see it, once you feel it, there's a draw.
Right.
Okay, not to everybody, obviously, but there's a draw. And that's what, I mean, these other guys could have done that. I mean, these other Ravs, these other could have sent people out to shlichus and stuff like that. Only the Rebbe.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine what he did? How he changed the world just with shlichus.
Were there any other chassidim in Crown Heights that stuck out to you? Rabbi Chodakov, any people that like you had some kind of interaction with?
No, but there were a couple shuls there for a while that were, in houses and stuff like that. Smaller people.
Not Lubavitch.
Not Lubavitch.
Right. So you would hang out.
There was also American shuls too.
So you would go there too sometimes.
No.
But so in Lubavitch itself, were there any people that like made an impression on you outside Rabbi Jacobson?
Well, there was this guy that was in business. He had a jewelry store in the Bronx, and he lived in Crown Heights, and he davened, and you wouldn't know that he was followed Lubavitch because he looked like me, very loud and whatever. But he was someone that you say, "Oh my God, look, it's not just me." I mean, people more than even if you're not from Lubavitch, you appreciate Lubavitch because look what this guy's doing.
Right.
And there was a lot of them like that there.
Right. So Lubavitch in those days to you meant
Flor's Hebrew bookstore, right? Rabbi Yitzchak Flor, okay? He grew up in Williamsburg. He wasn't Lubavitch.
right.
But he went there, and all of a sudden,
Did he adopt the look of a Lubavitcher?
No.
No. So what you're telling me is that at the time there were a lot of people who they davened in 770, felt themselves part of Lubavitch, or maybe even felt themselves to be Lubavitchers, but they didn't look like they. Right?
Yeah, there were some. Especially the ones that lived there, and after a while, Lubavitch became the only place. I remember one year, Tashlich, okay? Rebbe used to take Tashlich. Everybody wanted to go Tashlich with the Rebbe. We used to go to Prospect Park. Right. They had a pond there, okay? Right. So we would line up on Eastern Parkway, the service area there, and every year it grew. So here we're going, and this one year we go there, and there must be 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 blocks of packed people going to Prospect Park to do Tashlich.
Not just Lubavitch.
No.
The Crown Heights.
People went to be with, are you kidding?
Right.
He had a gem there. You wanted to be with someone that you thought would bring your message closer, right?
So Crown Heights community, this wants to, you're kind of assembled around the Rebbe for Tashlich.
For Tashlich. So we get there, and the murmur comes through. the gate's locked. It's an English holiday.
Right.
And everybody's going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And it's 3-4 minutes go by, and then the Rebbe comes back and goes, the Rebbe's climbing the fence.
You were there.
I was there. So I wasn't in the line. I was further back.
So you didn't see it happen.
I didn't see it happen, but I got the murmur.
So he climbed the fence. And what did he do?
They helped him climb the fence. So everybody climbed the fence. We went and did Tashlich, and the gates there, you can't get in, but you can get out.
You're talking about the
Botanical Gardens.
Botanical Gardens. Yeah.
But the gates there, you can't get in, but if you go the other way, it lets you out. So everybody walked out the gates. It was like the wildest thing. And then, about 10 years later, I ran into this guy. I think maybe it was later, maybe it was not 10 years or more. And so I was talking about the Tashlich, and he said, I was there. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, tell me about it. He says, I was on Shlichus, someplace in Brooklyn. There was a shul that needed a rabbi, so they sent me there, and I'm helping these people. It's a modern Orthodox type shul, and I'm the Rebbe there. So he says, about a week or so before Rosh Hashanah, he got Yechidus with the Rebbe, and he said, what should I do? What do you mean, what should you do? He says, every year I go Tashlich with you to Prospect Park. Now I have a congregation. Should I stay and help them with do Tashlich, or should I go? So the Rebbe says, either way is okay. He says, but I think maybe it'd be a good idea to do it over there. And so he told me, he says, he believes that the Rebbe knew that the gate was going to be locked. That's why he told him not to come with me and to go over there. That's his belief.
Were you in 770 for Simchas Torah, Yom Kippur, these big days?
Oh yeah.
Did they stick out to you? Hakafas, did they stick out to you in any way?
Yeah, Hakafas, it got bigger as time went on. I mean, the growth. I mean, I remember Hakafas in 770.
Right.
In the building. I mean, there was 40, 50 people, maybe 50 people.
Right.
It was like.
What was that like?
It was very homely. I felt like I was in D.C. with my group of people. I felt like this was very not so much Rebbish, not so much the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but this is more like a group of people getting together. That's what it felt like to me.
Right, he's like the rabbi of the community.
But it was also early in his time too.
Right.
He hadn't built.
Right.
He hadn't built the Rebbe.
Right.
I remember.
So did you like it less as it got bigger? Did you feel less connected to it?
I felt less connected as it got bigger.
You did?
Because there's so much.
Right.
Here, you're one of 35, 45, 50 people. You're part of the group.
Right, so it was more impressive, but less connection for you.
For me.
For you, yes, I understand.
Because there's just so many people. I mean,
right.
I told you about my shoes, right?
About the Rebbe noticing your shoes? Yes, you did. That's going to be the story that everybody takes out of this conversation.
No, but I'm telling you, he caught himself. And he goes, oh.
Was there ever any other moments at Yechidus or else that made you feel that the Rebbe knew who you were, or you in general kept a distance?
I didn't keep a distance. If he ran, I mean, he wasn't the.
Like as time went on,
I never had the awe that some people have with the Rebbe. I never had that because I was there from when I was younger, and the Rebbe was the Rebbe. This is what it was. It wasn't
part of life.
It was that's this dude. That's what he is, and.
I don't know. I respect that, but was there maybe later on, and as you're there for almost 10 years, and you walk into Yechidus, and now okay, you've been here 10 times, or I was I know you by your first name. He's was there that kind of relationship, or it was more just formal?
It was always formal.
Formal.
Always formal. You know what? The guy was one of a kind.
Oh, I understand.
And it's.
So looking back on your story, or looking back, I mean, you kind of touched on it before. I think we spoke about it over the phone. You finish 770, or you finish Hadar Torah, you get married, what did your wife think about this whole Lubavitch thing? He walks into the Rebbe and for Yechidus or for the bracha for marriage.
We never really talked about it. I mean,
Right.
but as far as for me, that's the way it was. I mean,
Right.
if you have a birthday, you go to the Rebbe. I mean, this is what I grew up with and eventually evolved into. And as I got older and was away from the Rebbe more, then unfortunately after he passed away,
Right, so that's
it
what I want.
changed.
Right, so what I'm picking up from you, you can tell me if I'm getting it wrong. What I'm picking up from you is that there was a lot of respect there for like, Lubavitch and the Rebbe, but it was a much more formal kind of relationship. Like,
Oh yeah,
it
100%.
wasn't like you going for a bracha. Yeah, that's what you do.
The Rebbe
But
and I would never go out and play stickball together.
no, of course not. But it wasn't like a rapturous kind of relationship.
No.
One could even say a very American approach to all of it, very practical and pragmatic and down to earth.
He was this very special thing
Right. No, I understand.
that was given to us to participate in. My friend, Mr. Risk. He was just how lucky can I get? We needed to go, the family was having trouble and these two Lubavitchers were there and I got to go to Lubavitch.
Right. It's a pretty cool story.
I mean, are you kidding me? And to have what I had then,
Right.
and to see what I saw, and to be part of, I mean,
So you feel lucky that you saw it.
oh, there's no question about it.
Right.
No one gets to see this stuff.
Right.
I mean, listen,
No, because it's interesting that at the time you seem to have taken a more kind of staid approach. But
Because
when you talk about what you saw, you seem to be more rapturous about it.
because in hindsight, I realized it was more than I wanted to give it credit for at the time.
I see.
I mean, at the time I was younger, I was other things, but you look back and say, where was all the value coming from?
Right.
This is empty.
Yeah, let's put it away.
Where's all the value? I mean, it was his time. I mean, and it was a gift.
Right.
And think about it. I didn't go there on purpose. I didn't go there with the.
No, it's pretty.
I got lucky.
It's a really cool story.
I got lucky. I mean.
Right. So to sum it up, you mentioned earlier that you daven Sachari, and I did. In the beginning, we were getting a little bit stuck in definitions. Like, you get married, you move to wherever you move to. You don't really stay in touch with, the Lubavitch on a personal level. Did you ever go back to see the Rebbe at any point?
I think at one time, but it was.
Like dollars, or yechidus?
Oh no, not dollars. I never was part of the dollar thing. I was gone before that started.
No, did you come back for dollars? When you came back, it was for what? For you scheduled the yechidus later on?
There wasn't much after that. I did in the beginning, but after that it was.
So you moved on with your life.
But I still kept what I.
That's what I'm trying to get to. So do you consider? How do you see yourself in this space or world of Lubavitch? How do you now, looking back at it?
I don't sit at the head table, but I'm in the crowd.
Mm. Right. Right. I guess to put it a little bit differently, I'm not trying to get you to say one way or another, I'm a Lubavitcher, I'm not a Lubavitcher, but...
Oh, I can tell you. I mean,
yes.
In my heart,
yes,
100%. I'm blessed to be involved with Lubavitch and have Lubavitch, and it's part of my being now. I mean, there's no question about that. I'm, in essence, I'm Lubavitch. Okay. Do I do everything Lubavitch does? I didn't do it then, and I don't do it now. But as far as if I had to choose something, it sure would be Lubavitch. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be anything else.
it seeped into the bones. Yeah. a Talmud, a student in Tomchatum in Lubavitcher Rebbe,
Forever.
you're forever a Talmud, right? And I mean, obviously, there could be a spiritual level to that of like, if you're touched spiritually on some level, it's eternal. But I think there's something about something unique about the Lubavitcher Yeshiva, if it penetrates and kind of seeps into the bones, it stays. It doesn't go anywhere.
I daven Nusach Harei. I can show you my siddur.
I believe you.
It's the same siddur I had in 1959.
Oh yeah.
Same siddur. It just this year, I just had to cover because it was really getting in bad shape.
The Rebbe gave that one to you, or you
No,
spotted?
that I got from when I was in the Bedford and Dean.
Huh, how about that?
Yeah, it's and it's a yeshiva siddur. It's not one that you take. It's you use for the yeshiva. It's not one that you do for Yontif. It doesn't have any of the Yontif davening.
Just weekday.
It's weekday and Shabbos and whatever.
And why have you been holding on to the same siddur? You could daven Nusach Harei in a different siddur.
I have different Nusach Harei siddurs.
Why are you holding on to this siddur?
Because that's my siddur. That's the one that goes back, and it has everything I need.
Fascinating. So you
I'll show you the siddur.
I know, of course I want to see it. So you've spent decades, we're talking now 5 decades more, where you've left Bedford and Dean, Crown Heights. You didn't feel a need to come back. You don't feel a need to dress the part or to outwardly identify with this. But the siddur on a daily basis, it's not. You don't only stay with the nusach, but you stay with the actual siddur.
That's correct.
That's amazing. Why do you think that is?
Because there's a connection.
There's a connection.
There's a connection, and not only that, there's a growth and a maturity along the time that I was there, and this was part of that growth process. This was there. So when I'm holding a siddur, it's not just the siddur, it's the whole time, all the things they did, all the stuff. I mean, geez, he was. I remember. This shouldn't be for publication.
You could say that.
Okay.
We'll take it out if we need to.
Okay, so I used to get the davening. We davened in the dorm. We slept in the dorm. They woke us up at 6:45. 10 after 7 was when davening. So you had to be downstairs by 10 after 7. I'd come at 10, 15 after 7, 20 after 7. So Rabbi Liss and was the leader. He was the mashpia. Okay, he says, okay, if you come in late again, it's a penny. Penny was a big deal. I mean, a penny wasn't easy to come by. I mean, so I put pennies. And then after a while, he says, you know what? It's a nickel. I said, why is it a nickel? He says, because a penny doesn't seem to affect you. You're still coming down late. I said, okay. Okay. And then after they said, no more money. Baal peh. You need to learn stuff baal peh. Maybe that will get you going. And I'll never forget. This is what changed my life. It was that I'm doing baal peh, and he's correcting me, not looking in the siddur. I said, wow, you know it by heart. He said, no, I'm reading it backwards. He says, yeah, right, you're reading it backwards. He says, in Singapore, after the war, there was one siddur for 4 guys. I'm the one that sat in the back. I read it back upside down. 2 guys read it on the side, and 1 guy actually got the real way. I read it upside down. So you have to sit in front of me now. I'm reading it the way I'm used to reading it. And after that, I said, my God, this guy went through something else, and he's here trying to teach me, and I'm giving him a hard time. Changed me. No more hard time anymore. He couldn't believe that I changed. But he went through all that stuff.
Rabbi Liss,
he went through all that stuff, and he's here trying to spread and pass it on to new people and to me, and I'm giving him a hard time.
How about that?
I said, oh, my God. Wow. I mean, that was probably one of the dumbest things I ever did, not realizing it until he read upside down in the siddur.
Well, David, you said earlier that you were lucky to have been in 770 and to be in Lubavitch and to see the Rebbe and so on. And I feel very lucky to have met you and to spend this hour and a half with you. And I think that many people listening to this will have felt lucky as well.
Well, I don't know. It's
like we say in davening every morning, Ashreinu Matov Chalkeinu, and we are lucky for the things that we're lucky for what we have, And we're lucky when we know that we're lucky. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was just Lubavitch. It wasn't anything special, but after you're away and you see the rest of the world, you say, wow, how lucky did you get? I got lucky.
Yeah. All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. The music for this podcast comes from the album Repentant Doors by Oren Sor Nadav Vachar and is used with their permission.